They thought they could bury you. They thought that if they just applied enough pressure, if they just built enough walls, if they just whispered enough lies into the ears of the masses, you would eventually fold. They thought your silence was submission. They thought your lack of defense was a confession of guilt. But they fundamentally misunderstood the physics of your ambition. You didn't stop talking because you were defeated. You stopped talking because you were calibrating. You stopped explaining because you realized that trying to convince people who are financially, emotionally, and spiritually invested in your failure is a leak in your own power. So let me tell you something. You didn't just win. You won so hard that the very systems designed to keep you down had to intervene. The feds of your reality, the establishment, the doubters, the systemic barriers that were rigged against your bloodline had to step in and hand you your justice because your success became undeniable. Case closed. The universe doesn't argue with undeniable execution. When you build in the dark, when you bleed in private, when you let your results do the screaming, you don't just beat the competition. You break the matrix. You are the chosen one, not by some magical decree, but by the sheer unbothered, ruthless discipline of your daily habits. The marathon continues, and you just crossed the finish line while they were still tying their shoes. Listen, this is your finest hour, but to understand the magnitude of this victory, we have to look at the blood you left on the floor to get here. Think about the early days. Think about the darkest moment of your journey. Before the momentum shifted, before the checks cleared, before the world had to acknowledge your name. You were drowning in the noise. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a roadmap for your life. Your family, your friends, the people who shared your zip code but not your vision. They all wanted a piece of your attention. They wanted you to explain your goal. They wanted you to justify your purpose. And the tragic part, you gave it to them. You see, the human brain is wired for tribal acceptance. We are biologically terrified of being ostracized. So when they looked at you with that skeptical tilt of the head, when they asked, how are you going to pay for that? Or why are you wasting your time on this? You felt the sting of rejection, and your instinct was to defend. You opened your mouth and you poured your vision out onto the table. You tried to make them see what you saw. You tried to transfer your faith into their minds. But here's what most people don't understand. You cannot transfer vision to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. Every time you explained your dream to a small mind, you leaked energy. You took the sacred, fragile seed of your purpose and you exposed it to the frost of their cynicism. You felt the emotional drain of overgiving. You were working a full-time job on your hustle and then working a second full-time job managing their perceptions of you. It was exhausting. You were falling forward, trying to take risks, trying to be brave, but you were doing it with an anchor tied to your ankle. The anchor was their validation. I'll say it again. The anchor was their validation. Remember the struggle of those late nights. The sensory details of that grind are burned into your retinas. The taste of stale coffee at 3 a.m. The burning in your eyes from staring at spreadsheets, at code, at blueprints, at whatever it was you were building. The physical ache in your lower back from a chair that wasn't meant for 16-hour shifts. And through it all, the whispering. The whispers that you were crazy. The whispers that you were going to fail. And the worst part was that a tiny cowardly part of you believed them. That's the fear of wasted potential. That's the deathbed reflection waiting to happen. You looked in the mirror and wondered if you were just a dreamer or if you were actually a builder. But here's the thing. The breaking point didn't come when you finally succeeded. The breaking point came when you realized that your success wouldn't be enough to silence them anyway. If you made $1 million, they'd ask why it wasn't 10. If you bought the house, they'd critique the neighborhood. If you changed the world, they'd complain about the new paradigm. The realization hit you like a physical blow. Their doubt was not about your capability. Their doubt was about their own limitations. Your growth was a mirror reflecting their stagnation, and they hated you for holding up the glass. So you made a choice. A brutal, uncompromising choice. You decided to stop chasing their understanding. You decided to stop explaining your moves. You realized that true commitment means you are willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time. You embraced the struggle. You accepted that if you wanted to earn it, if you wanted to claim it, you had to walk through the valley of their mockery without saying a single word in your defense. You had to let them think you were failing. You had to let them think you had quit. Because the moment they think you've quit is the exact moment you become dangerous. Not only that, but you realize that every word you spoke was a withdrawal from your energy account. Every explanation was a distraction. You needed to consolidate your power. You needed to pull all your scattered energy back into your own center. You had to get back up, not just physically, but psychologically. You had to stand your ground in the quiet. You had to learn that your silence becomes your power. Now, let's break down the mechanics of this transformation, because silence is not just the absence of noise. Silence is an active, aggressive, tactical weapon. It is the architecture of unbothered execution. Most people think silence is passive. They think it's hiding. Let me be clear. Hiding is fear. Silence is strategy. When you withhold validation, when you refuse to give them the reaction they are begging for, you flip the power dynamic entirely. You become the ghost in their machine. You become the variable they cannot calculate. To master this, you must internalize 3 actionable rules. These are not suggestions. These are the laws of physics for the chosen one. Rule number 1, the rule of the vault. Your vision is sacred. It is the blueprint of your future empire. When you tell people your goals before they are realized, you get a premature hit of dopamine. Your brain tricks you into feeling like you've already achieved it, which actually destroys your drive to do the work. The rule of the vault means you lock the blueprint away. You don't share the master plan with people who don't have the clearance to understand it. You only discuss the execution with those who are helping you lay the bricks. You keep the grand vision locked in the vault of your mind, feeding it only with action, never with cheap talk. You dream big, but you dream in silence. Rule number 2, the rule of the echo. Never repeat yourself. This is crucial. When someone doubts you, when someone questions your process, your instinct is to argue, to echo your point, to say, no, you don't understand. Here's why I'm doing this. Stop. The rule of the echo dictates that you never repeat your instructions to people who are committed to being deaf. You state your boundary once, you state your reality once, and then you let the silence hang there. Let the silence be uncomfortable for them. Let them sit in the vacuum of your non-response. When you refuse to echo, you force them to confront their own noise. You conserve your vocal cords for the moments that actually matter. You keep going, and you let the results be the only echo that bounces off the walls of their reality. Rule number 3, the rule of the ghost. Move in the shadows. Appear only when the work is done. This is the Nipsey Hussle ethos. The marathon continues in the dark. You don't post the behind the scenes. You don't document the struggle for sympathy. You don't ask for applause for the sweat you haven't even wiped off your brow yet. You ghost the narrative. You let them speculate. You let them wonder what you're up to. And while they are busy guessing, you are busy building. You take risks in the dark. You fail forward in the dark. You take the hits, you absorb the lessons, and you adjust the strategy without an audience. When you finally step back into the light, you don't just have a project, you have an empire. You have an undeniable, towering monument to your discipline that requires no explanation. Let me tell you a story to anchor this. Think about the master architect and the loud critic. The critic stands on the street corner every day, pointing at the empty lot, shouting about why the building won't work. He talks about the zoning laws, the wind resistance, the cost of materials. He gathers a crowd. He gets likes, he gets attention, he gets a dopamine hit of being the smartest guy in the room. Meanwhile, the architect is underground, literally. He's in the dirt, pouring the foundation. He doesn't hear the critic. He doesn't care about the critic. He is focused on the load-bearing walls. He is focused on the structural integrity. Months pass. The critic is still on the corner, his voice getting raspier, his arguments getting more desperate. But the architect is rising. Steel goes up. Glass goes up. The shadow of the building falls over the street corner. The critic has to squint to see the top. And when the ribbon is finally cut, the architect doesn't even look at the critic. He doesn't need to say, I told you so. The building says it. The building is the echo. The building is the ghost that now haunts the critic's every waking moment. That's the difference. The critic trades in words. The architect trades in reality. Words evaporate. Reality casts a shadow. So let me tell you something. When you apply these 3 rules, something magical happens to your psychology. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop being the leaf blown around by the wind of other people's opinions. You become the wind. You realize that withholding validation is the ultimate form of emotional discipline. You are no longer a slave to their praise, which means you are no longer a victim of their criticism. You are unbothered. You are calibrated. You are in total control. And as you master this, you will find that your silence becomes your power. But here's the thing. Silence is only the container. Execution is the content. You can sit in a quiet room and do absolutely nothing, and that's not strategy. That's just stagnation. The magic happens when strategic silence meets unbothered execution. This is where the identity transformation occurs. You are no longer fixing yourself. You are becoming. You are shedding the skin of the person who needed to be understood, and you are stepping into the armor of the person who simply gets it done. This requires a level of consistency that borders on the psychotic. It requires a commitment that scares normal people, because normal people work when they feel motivated. You work because it is your purpose. You work because your work ethic is a sacred sacrifice. You are sacrificing your comfort, your leisure, your need for social approval on the altar of your future. You are pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into the ground, knowing that the harvest might not come for years. But you have faith. You have gratitude for the struggle, because the struggle is what forges the blade. Think about the compounding power of daily discipline. It's not about the massive, heroic, once-in-a-lifetime effort. It's about the boring, unsexy, repetitive actions you take when no one is watching. It's waking up at the same time. It's doing the deep work when your brain is begging for a distraction. It's saying no to the good so you can say yes to the great. It's the refusal to ring the bell. When the pain gets too much, when the doubt creeps in, when the world tells you to just take a break, you don't ring the bell. You stay in the pocket. You keep going. Let's talk about mortality. Let's talk about the clock, because time is the only non-renewable resource you have. Every second you spend explaining yourself to a fool is a second you steal from your own legacy. You are dying. We are all dying. The clock is ticking down second by second, and it will never ever reset. When you're on your deathbed, lying there, taking your final breaths, do you think you're going to care about the arguments you won on the internet? Do you think you're going to care about the people who called you crazy? No. You are going to care about whether you emptied the tank. You are going to care about whether you fell forward. You are going to care about whether you took the risks, whether you were brave, whether you turned the impossible turn possible. Fear of wasted potential should be the fire that burns in your belly every single morning. You owe it to your ancestors who bled so you could have this opportunity. You owe it to your descendants who will reap the harvest of the seeds you are planting right now. You cannot afford to be mediocre. You cannot afford to be distracted. You must work hard. You must dream big. But you must do it with a cold, calculated, unbothered execution. This is where the defiance against doubt comes in. Not just their doubt, but your own. Because there will be days when the imposter syndrome wakes up and tries to choke you. There will be days when you look at the mountain and wonder if you have the strength to climb it. In those moments, you must rely on your identity. You are not someone who quits. You are not someone who explains. You are someone who executes. You stand your ground. You look at the doubt in the eye and you say, I don't have time for you. I have work to do. And this is how you win so hard that the feds intervene. This is how you reach the point where the universe has no choice but to hand you your justice, because you didn't ask for it. You didn't beg for it. You didn't protest for it. You simply outworked it. You outsilenced it. You built a reality so dense, so powerful, so undeniable that the old reality had to collapse around it. The systemic barriers didn't just break. They were bypassed by your sheer momentum. You became the chosen one because you chose the hard path, and you walked it in silence. Not only that, but this unbothered execution creates an irreversible momentum. Once you get the flywheel spinning, once you prove to yourself that you can do the work without needing the applause, you become unstoppable. You enter a flow state that lasts for years. You change the world, not by shouting at it, but by building the infrastructure for its future. You earn it, you claim it, and you do it with a quiet, terrifying confidence. Remember this. The loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. The person who needs to tell you how rich they are, how smart they are, how connected they are begging for your validation. They are empty inside. But the person who says nothing, the person who just nods, goes back to work and lets their life speak for them, that is the person you need to watch. That is the person who is going to change the world. That is the person who is going to change the world. That is the person you must become. And as you commit to this daily, unbothered execution, as you let the compounding habits build your empire brick by brick, you will realize the ultimate truth of this journey. Your silence becomes your power. So let me tell you something. We are at the end of the explanation and the beginning of your execution. You have heard the words. You have felt the truth of them in your gut. But words are just wind. Action is gravity. And it is time for you to become the heaviest thing in the room. Look at where you are right now. Look at the people around you who are still trapped in the cycle of chasing, explaining, and seeking validation. They are running on a treadmill, sweating profusely, going nowhere. They are begging the world to notice them. They are posting, they are preaching, they are pleading, and they are entirely empty. Now look at yourself. You have the vision. You have the goal, you have the purpose, you have the discipline to keep your mouth shut and your hands moving, you have the courage to fall forward, you have the faith to believe in the impossible turn possible. You have the gratitude for the struggle that is forging you into a weapon. You are the chosen one, not because of destiny, because of discipline. The feds of your reality are watching, the systems are watching, the doubters are watching. Let them watch, let them wonder. Let them build their theories about your silence. Let them think you are lost while you are actually laying the foundation for a skyscraper. Let them think you are weak while you are actually conserving your energy for the kill. When the gavel finally drops, when the case is finally closed, when the justice is finally handed to you, it won't be because you argued for it. It will be because you outgrew the need for their permission. You won so hard that the very matrix had to rewrite its code to accommodate your success. You stood your ground in the quiet. You never gave up. You never gave up. You just kept going. This is your finest hour. But it only remains your finest hour if you protect it, if you guard your energy, if you refuse to leak your power to people who cannot afford your vision. So I will say it again, and I need you to let this sink into your bones. The cost of chasing is your soul. The cost of explaining is your power. The reward of silence is the world. You have the blueprint. You have the rules. You have the discipline. The only thing left to do is the work. The unbothered, relentless, unapologetic work. Close your mouth. Open your hands. Build in the quiet.